I did want to ask you, in the time we have left, I also wanted to ask you about the UK. This is a country you know very well. You're here a lot. You have done a lot of work here. You write columns here. So you straddle the two continents. And I wanted to ask you how you think Britain is getting on at the moment. You mentioned immigration earlier in relation to Trump. That's a continual question here in the UK. The incapacity of the Labour government to control the borders, police the borders, tell us what's going on. That seems to be a perennial problem. How do you see events in the UK at the moment? Is it depressing to you, what's going on here?
It's very depressing. And I do keep very close tabs on the UK. It's compulsive. I read the Daily Telegraph every day. I'm worried about the UK across the board. I mean, my biggest concern is immigration. It's been one of my pet topics for decades. I anticipated back by about 1990 that immigration was going to be the dominant issue of this century. And so far I'd been right. And it's not going to get any less dominant. It's going to get more pressing. The UK is accepting immigrants on a scale that is completely transforming the demographic makeup of the country. And there's no getting around the fact that that is both a cultural and a political threat. I mean, talk about taking over. The truth is, and we don't face this, but if you're a democracy, then letting in large numbers of people is political takeover. You are allowing yourself to be politically invaded because these people and their descendants can determine the nature of your government. That's the deal. So it's not just like importing a lot of maids and fruit pickers. It has implications far beyond that. And I sense a growing popular rage in the UK about what is being done to their country without any consultation. I mean, it is ostensibly a democracy, and yet why is it the biggest thing that is happening to the country during our lifetimes is being done without asking? And whenever people are allowed to vote, they vote for parties that promise to do something about it, and then they don't. And I think the level of rage on the ground is, if anything, underestimated by the powers that be. I mean, one of my most unsavory habits is to read the comments after articles about immigration. Well,
that's brave.
It's very entertaining. But the rage is just astonishing, and the resentment, and this sense of injustice of why is this being done to us, and why is this in our interest, and how are we ever going to reverse this? These people are not going home. This is permanent. And it's also, it has momentum, because while it is true that over time, immigrants who come from societies that have large families gradually adopt the fertility habits of their new country. This is true. But before they do so, they have more children than the locals. So that means that not only do you let in people from very different cultures, but then there is a demographic momentum behind them. So, I mean, Matt Goodwin has done a lot of research on the implications for the UK. And, it's true that, for example, I lived for many decades in Britain, but I never completely considered myself British, right? I was an immigrant. I was from a different country. Much less did I consider myself English. And I didn't think that that was being discriminatory against me. It wasn't that, but I'm still not British. I'm still not a part of your country. When I go there, I'm very familiar with the place and I feel comfortable there, but it is not my home. So I do, even in my personal life and the way I regard myself, do not believe that there is no difference between someone who arrives from somewhere else and people who are not only, who are both English and British and whose families have been English and British for many, many generations, up to 1,000 years. There is a difference. And if you overwhelm the native culture with people who are new to the country, it's not the same place anymore. And whittle by whittle, it's just a patch on a map. And you lose a sense of who you are. I mean, I think that visitors to London, for example, from the United States, they want to see England. They want to visit England. And then it's like, what's this? There aren't any English people here. And, it's not a small matter that the UK has allowed its capital city to be completely colonized by the rest of the world. And, you can take the attitude, oh, it's an exciting place with all the diversity. That's a word that I've come to detest. All the different restaurants, but it's not an English city anymore. And small amounts of immigration are stimulating, and it is good to have interesting people from elsewhere and bringing in different perspectives and different foods and different ways of thinking, etc. I mean, the diversity crowd doesn't need any help. But, it's a question of numbers and proportions, and the numbers in the UK are out of control. And people are very angry about it, and Keir Starmer isn't doing anything. I mean, and we all knew that his smash the gangs thing was a joke, because this is a supply and demand problem. The demand is not going anywhere. And the only way that you're going to change the demand is to change the incentives. And the UK is living in, 1946 or something. And, all the laws, all the court decisions are in the interests of the immigrant. There are all kinds of ways to stay. Practically nobody is deported. And on top of everything, of course, you put up asylum seekers in hotels indefinitely and give them a supplementary living. And then you turn a blind eye when they also start working. All you have to do is walk past these asylum hotels, and it's all these electric bikes, because everyone's working for delivery companies. And why wouldn't you come to Britain? It's great. You never get kicked out. The government gives you a place to live. It's almost too good to be true. It shouldn't be true. And that's the other thing that regular Britons are really angry about, because, they're getting heavily taxed. They work hard, or some of them. That's another issue. Like 10 million other people have cited, we're just going to free ride. But if you don't change the incentives in with the immigration, it's just going to keep going. And the French also have to get a grip, because on the one hand, I think they are deliberately punishing Britain for leaving the EU. They're gleeful about all the small boats. They're not making a serious effort to stop them. But in the big picture, it's not in France's interest. I mean, if they simply agree to take the small boat people back, the problem would be gone in a week. Because if you pay all that money to simply to go back to where you were, then everyone would have to decide, we're not going to do this. We have to, we need a new plan. So, and so why does France want to have this constant problem on its coast? Why not bite the bullet, accept some of these people back, and as your reward, you don't have to deal with it anymore?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear now that the immigration is the issue through which British people most keenly feel their sense of disenfranchisement. They're not allowed to talk about it. It feels imposed on them. It seems to come from an establishment that doesn't listen to them or care about them. But in relation to that, I guess I want to finish off by asking you about Keir Starmer's leadership style and how that strikes you and how it might relate to how you view the Democrats in the US right now in terms of what is promised by that section of political society. Because Keir Starmer seems to me such an incredibly weak leader, even at the same time as he's imposing things on this country that people don't want. The Democrats seem to be in complete freefall politically, morally. To finish off, where do you think that layer of political society is going in terms of how Britain is being governed, how America might be governed in the future were the Democrats to get back in power? How do you see that playing out?
Well, one of the things that makes politics interesting, to me anyway, and I think to a lot of people, is that it's personal. It's not just about these entities who represent a viewpoint or a package of policies. It's people. They're people, and their flaws pertain. Their flaws influence what they are capable of accomplishing. And Keir Starmer wears his flaws on his sleeve. He comes across. I mean, I'm sorry, Keir, if you're listening, but I bet you're not, so we can say what we want. Yes, he comes across as weak, boring, and that matters. Boring matters. Yeah. Right? You don't pay attention to boring people. You don't worry what they think of you. You don't worry what they're going to do. You ignore them. Boring means you have less political power. He is flat. He doesn't seem to have a capacity to, at least to evidence in public, strong relationships with other people, like with people on his own team. He seems ineffectual. He's a big snooze. He's an empty suit. Yeah. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the Labour Party ditches him midstream. I mean, it would be wise to do so. And you're right to call, to make a parallel with the Democrats of the United States. There is no heir apparent. You know, I don't think Gavin Newsom in California is a serious candidate for president, though he thinks he is. But I don't think he would ever be elected. You know, he's woke personified, and he's kind of creepy. At least he has some personality. Even if it's a bit repulsive, that's better than not having one. And I honestly, Keir Starmer just comes across as a blank. And that's why people voted for him. He was a none of the above candidate. It was a negative election. So we all know that. It was a vote the Tories out election. So, it wasn't a pro Keir Starmer election. He was like one of those blank, outlines, right? So like Amazon when they don't have a picture of the product. And I think that matters. It didn't seem to matter when they were out of office. And so that facilitated this negative election in which he was so victorious. But now that being a nothing in power is not an advantage. And it's almost as if there isn't a prime minister, right? It's just, he's a real embarrassment. And he seems like a placeholder. I mean, someone else has to come along. But it is interesting in the broader sense that in politics, you need a person. I mean, that's what Trump has demonstrated. I can theorize all I want about some ideal candidate who is not only willing to make big changes at the top, but also has the capacity to do it in a methodical and intelligent way. Well, there is no such candidate. There only was Trump. He was the only guy who, on a personality level, brought people over to his side, however weird that is. I mean, if you're not susceptible to his charms, I'm sure that it seems mysterious, but because it does kind of to me. But you need the person. You need the personality.
True.
You need someone who is writ large and who has some kind of appeal as a human being and not simply as a position paper. And that's one of the mysterious things about politics. And I don't see anyone in the Labor Party, or for that matter right now, even in the Conservative Party, much less in the Democratic Party, who has that kind of, well, call it charisma or something. No, something that's big and compelling. And that's what any party needs to marshal a big change and a lot of support. And apparently, I don't see it myself either, but Mom Donnie had that, at least on a scale that persuaded people in New York City.